Hey, this is Eli Campbell. You know, Steamboat is renowned worldwide for skiing, biking, and all that our natural playground has to offer. We're fortunate, though, that the natural beauty here attracts more than just outdoor enthusiasts. From local legends to world-class acts, amazing musicians regularly play the venues in our little corner of Northwest Colorado. Join me as I explore the stories and experiences of these talented artists who bring unforgettable performances to Steamboat. This is your Steamboat Sound Check. Welcome to the Steamboat Sound Check podcast. Eli Campbell here with you, our podcast presented by McCreight Progressive Dentistry. I have had the pleasure through this year so far to be talking to a lot of musicians who are coming to play Schmiggity's and coming to play WinterWonderGrass. This morning I've got a bit of a twofer. I've got a man who's going to be playing Schmiggity's on the 22nd, WinterWonderGrass at the end of the month, Mr. Kyle Hollingsworth. How are you doing today?
Doing great, man. Sounds like you're having a good day over there, too.
Yeah, it's a wonderful day. We're getting lots of snow. Hopefully, that snow will continue. We can't have WinterWonderGrass without snow falling throughout the festival. You're
Yeah.
obviously no stranger to playing the outdoor festivals in the snow. You've played just about every stage that there is to play in Steamboat, and I want to get to that. But first, I want to talk about how you kind of got started in music. You studied music in school, but your first draw was to acting and being on
Whoa.
stage in that sense. So I'm just kind of curious, what was it about performing and being on stage that always appealed to you?
Good freaking question. I haven't heard that in a long time. Yes, I was a thespian. So yes, I was always wanted to be kind of a character. I always wanted to be kind of a star of. I'd always be goofing around. So my mom said, "Okay, get him out of the house. What does it take? Throw him into acting classes." So yeah, I was doing acting classes since I was like 6 or 7, and so I ended up just loving being on stage. I loved getting out of my body, pretending to be somebody else. I did a couple like community commercials over at the television station. I did a little bit of, TV work here and there. But then at some point, when you turn like 14, 15 or 16, you're starting to get embarrassed about how you look and you're a teenager. And I was like, I don't want to audition anymore. I like acting, but I don't want to audition anymore. So I kind of gave up on that. And I said, what else could I do to be on stage? And I've always loved music. I had been taking piano lessons for quite a while, so that seemed like the next step.
Do you think that you take any of that acting mentality of trying to be someone you're not to the stage with you, or are you just kind of wholly within yourself on stage?
Good question. I think I'm wholly myself. At this point, there's no need to act anymore. I am, I am who I am. So I think the energy and the creativeness is still part of who I am as far as it relates to acting. But I'm myself.
Yeah. And of course, being yourself and music is what brought you to Colorado, where you ultimately were invited to play with the string cheese incident nearly 30 years ago. Now, when I
Jesus.
think back to my high school days in Denver in the 90s, and I thought I was cool because I was listening to these jam bands, it was Fish and Panic and
Right.
Mo, and of course, String Cheese Incident. And what was the one thing that was kind of similar to all of you is that there was no real definition to what you were doing. It was hard to define, no real genre, and it kind of became a genre in and of itself.
Hmm.
You yourself, you actually had punk influences before you played in a hippie jam band in Colorado. As you were first coming together with String Cheese, was it all these influences that came together that just kind of was throwing spaghetti at the wall, or was there a particular aim to what you were trying to do?
Throwing spaghetti at the wall like an incident, like a string cheese incident, like a food incident. Um, yes, I think I what's the famous quote from Oprah or someone? But I was prepared for opportunity to some degree. I had been playing in bands, before I even joined String Cheese. I'd been in like 30 bands. I'd been like doing this, doing that, whatever. I'll be in a punk band. I'll be in a 80s band. And then I came and I was still practicing every day. And I ran into Kang and Travis over at Dave Watt's house, actually. And they were like, come join the band or come do a tour with me. And I think I was just prepared and in the right space at the right time and bringing my what my experience was. And, and a little bit of attitude. they were, they were all hippie ready. Hey, we don't need to take showers for a couple weeks at a time. I remember actually being in Bussy and I wanted to take a shower after like 5 days. And they're like, what? Dude, why do you have to be so clean all the time? I'm like, dude, I got an edge, man. I need to take showers. I don't want to go for big hikes all the time. I want to do my own shit. So I had to be my own person and kind of and break away and be who I am first, and then bring it to the band. And then I think that all of us kind of working together through that has made us who we are for sure.
And it's interesting because you had that hippie style within the band, but you're also very apt at the business side of the music industry. You guys had to do it all yourself. And one of the things that really set you apart is that you took that dedicated approach to improving the craft, much in the way that the highest level athletes will watch film. You guys would study the recordings of your concerts in the early days. How integral was that to your growth and really finding what string cheese could be and would be?
Another great question. Yes, we did a lot of listening in the bus. We would get all this. We would tape all the shows. We'd bring our own PA and all our own recording gear, and we'd set up all the PA for the show, break it down off the show, and then we'd listen to the tapes the next day. It was important, I think. Is it coming off the way we want it to come off? Is how our tones, does that really work in that sense, or does that, could you be more blah? So I think a lot of self-critique was great in the beginning, and we're still doing it now, not as much, but it's great. I mean, actually, just the other day we're listening to some show and I was like, boy, I thought that piano tone was great. I remember playing it being like, this is amazing, and then listen back like, I'm totally rushing and you need to warm that up. So there is a great amount of that like going into it, and I think that was part of the history. It's going through the tapes, bringing up our own, we started like sending tapes to all the kids around the country. There's a business aspect of that as well, starting our own record company, kind of keeping it in-house.
How often do you go back and listen to the archives of the earliest tapes and think about how much you've progressed as a musician?
I do listen. I'm not terribly often, a few times a year I'll go back and be like, how is Texas, the song Texas, better now than it was then? Or is it? There's definitely a maturity of less rushing and uh less noodling. But then you listen back to the old one, and then some of that spark of just like not caring and going for it is what I think what really a lot of the fans liked. You're like Goose Now or something. It's just a matter of just spewing it all out on stage. And I think nowadays, and same for the Dead and a lot of bands have been older, you kind of come back and like, what is better music for us and what is better music overall? And as we grow older, I think we kind of tend to be more controlled, maybe. I don't know what it is exactly, but I think there is some sort of magic that's important to go back to and listen to the old tapes.
I think that's just part of life too, is there's the magic of kind of remembering the youthful side of someone in their 20s and just being able to being willing to say yes to anything. And now, as you get older, more calculated yeses, I suppose, to what you're doing.
Yes. Right, right.
Now, like I said, whether it's with String Cheese or your solo projects, you've probably played just about every stage there is to play here in Steamboat. I've been here long enough to remember the Independence incidents back in the early 2000s that you guys played on the head wall of the ski area. And my memory, I remember seeing Blues Traveler there, Israel Vibration. If I'm not mistaken, I think even Ben Harper flew in to Denver from Germany, like rented a Ford Mustang, drove up to the show, played his set, got back in the Ford Mustang to fly back to Germany. But all along, it was just such a great community feel at those events. So unfortunately short-lived. Those were now about 25 years ago. Do you have any memories of the Independence
Dude,
incidents?
of course, dude. I mean, you didn't miss the most important one, James freaking Brown.
Yeah, of course.
So James Brown, I mean, like, I knew who he was and I'd been listening to him for years, but then the documentary came out and I was like, I can't believe James Brown played before us. Like, I'm not saying the word opening because there's no such thing as we were opening for James Brown, but we just happened to go on second. And he came backstage and he was holding like Keith's baby. So he has a picture of that. of like the most important musicians that we played with, that was an epic moment in time. And yeah, I think, don't you guys have a bridge? I think he was in town.
Yeah, we have the James Brown Soul Center of the Universe Bridge.
I think he was already in town doing some kind of something for that. And so somehow our management is like, hey, we can pay you to be in town, but you have to open for this band. In fact, many years later, the female background singer from James Brown talked to us and said, "Oh, right, you're that band, String Cheese. I remember James Brown being so pissed when we got back on the bus and took off from that gig that some stupid ass white boys or whatever with a terrible, terrible name somehow played after him." But it doesn't matter. And yeah, there's some great memories there. I'd forgotten about Ben Harper, but yeah, that's so in our wheelhouse, like all the bands you mentioned. Like Blues
Yeah.
Traveler, we've been friends with those guys. It's been a long history.
Yeah, and of course, you're coming back to town a couple times in the next couple of weeks. You're first going to be playing Schmiggity's downtown on the 22nd. As opposed to the festival stage, how does that small bar venue really allow you to kind of express who you are through your music and interact with the audience?
It's great. I love playing the small venues. It's it gets a little tight, but it's nice to have that right up front, sweaty energy. I get to play a lot of my own music, definitely some string cheese music as well. But I have a new album coming out in about 6 months, so I'm testing the waters with new material. I have my older material as well. So it's always great to have that right in your face energy. I love Steamboat. The difference, I think, with Tyler with the Grateful Dead set is that's very specifically for WinterWonderGrass, and that's a Dead specific set. So I'm learning today. I'm literally learning some Grateful Dead songs, which will be fun. But it's also nice to kind of get out of the string cheese world a little bit and be able to jump into my other creative work.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. You're doing the Picking on the Dead set with Winter Wondergrass. Obviously bluegrass covers of the Grateful Dead songs. And it's something you've balanced your whole career. The keys aren't necessarily a part of bluegrass music traditionally. So how
Right.
do you find yourself being able to add to what they're trying to do without taking away the bluegrass elements?
Man, that's been the challenge my whole life. Um, you know, I discovered. I know Bruce Hornsby, and he's played with us a few times, but I'd forgotten he went out and did a whole bluegrass tour. I'm forgetting with whom it is right now, but he released a live album, and so for many years I've been trying to figure out where piano fits, and so he did a whole bluegrass album. It was really inspiring. Um, so finding the place, not only with how you play and where you comp or where you put the time in, but also maybe my the tone of the piano is maybe too close to the banjo. So finding like, oh, maybe I need to be up an octave or down an octave away from the similar sounds that are already occurring on stage. I think I tend to treat it like a drum beat, a little bit like the chop would be of a mandolin. So it's kind of giving a little bit of backbeat and then get out of the way when you're not needed. And that's the best part about music, or the best lesson to learn about music is when not to play. And so when there's so much happening, especially with bluegrass music, dude, do I need to be playing a bunch of little notes right here? Or is that just making everything else more garbled? So finding a place in music for, especially bluegrass music for piano, it can be tricky at times.
It's, taking that bluegrass tone to music that is really obviously so familiar to these fans. I've talked to a lot of Winter Wondergrass musicians where the Grateful Dead just happens to come up in the conversation, whether it was the brothers Comatose talking about growing up in the Bay Area, or Banjo Dave from Trampled by Turtles saying that the first time he saw his future bandmates, they were playing a Grateful Dead cover at a bar somewhere. And so
Right.
just seems like it's within that circle. How has the Dead's music been part of your musical journey?
I was thinking about this because I was going to talk to the boys about it. There is a culture behind it, especially with some musicians that play it often. Oh, well, we're going to be doing, so specific. We'll be doing the 1973 version of blah versus the best years were 1964 there's a whole thing. For me, as it relates to me, I only knew them because my brother was really into them. And I was like, man, that's a crazy name. It must be a punk rock band. We're all Quakers. I grew up being Quaker. Why is my brother listening to punk rock, Grateful Dead? Oh my God. And then I listened to it, I was like, this is actually pretty cool. And so I started seeing them in the 90s with Jerry. And I only probably saw, 10, 12 shows with Jerry, and then I would saw another 10 or so without him. So it was part of the culture for me because I found community there for sure. Of people of like mind, like spirit. Enjoyed the festival, the carnival. I wrote a new tune called Carnival, which I can send you. Going to the parking lot, hanging out, the vending. I would sell Beck's Dark, to buy the grilled cheese sandwich from the girl down the street. That whole part of that culture was really resonating with me when I was 18 to 25. So the music was fantastic. It got a little long. Like, okay, another drum jam. Okay, do we have to have that every night? Can't it just like a drum jam be like maybe every third night? And space is cool, but that's a great time, maybe if you're not tripping, to just go to the bathroom or something. So, and then, the music was up there for sure, but I think almost more so was the community for me.
Kind of sounds familiar to how I came across the Dead. It was a roommate of mine in college who, I mean, I'd listened to him, but he was the type that was wanting to find a specific recording of a specific show because of a specific,
Right.
song or error or something. And but it was always amazing to me, that community that came together. Now,
Right.
beyond music, you're also an avid brewer, and so part of this tour, you've teamed up with Ska Brewing for their grapefruit Modus IPA. It's got some citrus hops in there. That's obviously your beer of choice right now, I'm guessing. But how much influence did you actually have on this brew, and what do you like about it?
Good question. So I've worked with ska in the past. I made something called Modus Mandarina, which was, you probably all seen it in the stores. It's the orange can. Actually, my name is on the label, ironically. Um, that was one of the first ones. It was like called Manipulated Modus. I made it 10 years ago or something. And then they ended up selling a bunch of it. It turned out to be a big hit. So I reached out to them again and said, hey, do you want to do something for this run? So he and I spoke. Thibodeau and I talked for a while on the phone and talked about what we wanted to do. I couldn't make it down to Durango to create it, which I really do enjoy, but I was unable to go down there. So we just talked about it over the phone. I have yet to taste it, so I have no idea what it's going to be like. It's kind of like playing music, right? We could just improvise, and it could be the best solo ever. And you can improvise and make the best worst beer ever. You never really know. You're taking a shot in the dark. So we'll see how it comes out. I'm excited to taste it.
And as a beer fan, I saw you're going to be on the road quite a bit here this year, whether it's on your own or with String Cheese. Are there particular stops along the way where you kind of scout out the little craft breweries? Is there anything that you're particularly looking forward to?
100%. I do that in every town. I honestly don't drink a whole lot of beer, but when I do drink like a beer that I really want to drink. So I'll go to a town, I'll ask my Facebook fans like what is the best brewery in town, and I'll try to swing by or have them bring something by so I can taste it. It's pretty important to me too to be able to support a local small brewery, also get a taste of the region. I'm heading down to Asheville with my solo project, and I'm excited. Of course, there's great breweries there. I have no idea where String Cheese is going. Maybe you could tell me. I think I'm going to LA, then to San Diego or somewhere down there. So I think some good stuff on the West Coast I'm excited about.
And of course, when you're here in Steamboat, I recommend Storm Peak Brewery down on
Of
the west side
course.
of town. They've got some
I
good
know
stuff.
them.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome.
Well, thank you very much, Kyle, for taking some time today. You're going to be at Schmiggity's playing on February 22nd, and then Pickin On The Dead on at WinterWonderGrass on the February 28th through March 2nd run that they will be taking over the Knoll parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have a great snow day. Enjoy it.